Hello, this is Will Faerber from Art to Ride, and today we're looking at the first submission by our friend from Florida, Meg and her horse Blynk. They've just gotten some new footing down there, and that looks absolutely wonderful. First thing I'd say, I mean, what a perfect place to ride, to work dressage horses. Look at this nice big open space. This is exactly where I would like to work a horse. I find very often that, you know, for today's horses, a dressage ring is a very small little space, and I tend to work more out of one than in one, especially with beginning horses, because the circles just have to be too small in a dressage ring. So this is a wonderful space to be working your horses. I congratulate you all. That looks like really nice footing too, so looks like a wonderful space there. So as we're moving along here, this walk is not bad. Now, you know, just looking at this horse, and I know you're just bringing this horse back to work, we can see that she's a bit hollow there behind the saddle, so she's not well developed over her top line. You see kind of the dip there behind your saddle. Know that in time that's going to totally change, and that's going to all fill up, and the front of the horse is going to come up. And remember, over time, and about a 2-year process that this takes, you know, by doing the stretching work, the withers actually pull up through the shoulders, and that gives every horse a much more of appearance of being much more uphill. You know, we used to think that horses developed into being uphill rather than just breeding them, or as the saddlebred people do, putting shoes on them. So just know over time that that's going to work. But you're really doing a wonderful job here. I like the walk. It's getting stretched and low and deep, and that's what I want to have happen. It still needs to go a bit deeper. Once again, that's a good shot of the horse's back right there. As you come around that corner, you can see how hollow the horse is. So this is a horse that's not gonna be able to lift you much in the saddle until you can get that to begin to get active through the back there. So you're doing a little early canter here, and once again, same thing with the canter here. This horse is not really cantering over its back. That's better right there, but when you get into that canter right there, send it on a little bit more, and that would bring the back up a little more. So once you get that, that's not bad right there, and that's a way better canter than actually what you get. And you say in your letter that the horse is a little tired at the end, as he certainly looks it. Now that wasn't bad. A canter at least that good would be useful, but if it were the kind of canter we see at the end of the tape, not so useful. If you find the horse struggling like that, you're better off just to go back to the trot and work from there, which is what you obviously do here. But that was not a bad canter. If you can get the horse at least to that place, that's a good thing. And then once you get to that place, try to send it on a little bit, even if it feels a little you know, unstable at first a little bit, but try to get her to come on through from the back by just opening the horse's stride up a little bit. But you come back to a walk here, and this is good. Remember, my first rule of thumb is whether you need to lunge or not is whether you can get on the horse and stretch the horse in the walk. So you're able to do that, though I would say that with this horse, as undeveloped as its back is, I think you could do the horse some good by lunging it correctly a little bit. And once again, watch the videos on that subject on the site. And I think it would be good for this horse a couple of days a week at least before you get on to give her a little lunge work. Just let her loosen up that back, because she's got a ways to go. You have a lot of lifting to do there. But now this is a pretty good walk here. You're getting this horse pretty... Remember, when I say working gaits, that means working over the back. That's what working gaits were intended to mean, or the term working gaits. A lot of people are confused about what that is. It's not a speed. It's a position of the horse's body, that it's working through the top line. Now you can see here as her head comes up, you can see how she kind of shortens there. And there's a bit of... As you go into the lateral work, that's pretty good. Not bad, but you can see how her back end begins to get a little sticky looking there as you do that. So as much as possible, try to do that lateral work with the horse as long as you possibly can. That is, stretch down as deep as you can, and you'll see that will facilitate her hind legs coming through a little bit more. But that's not bad. You're certainly within the ballpark there of getting the job done. Watch. Sometimes I feel I've watched you take a couple of corners and they've been too sharp. So even when you're walking, make really big wide turns with this horse, because every time you do one of those little sort of half 10-meter circles there, she loses her back end and just really can't keep up with it. So remember that, you know, whatever turn you're making is you want to make it at a level that the horse can maintain the rhythm of the gait, because if the horse hollows as it does when you make those small turns, you sort of lose the back and then you're sort of starting all over again. Now, I certainly like as you go to the trot here, this is the right thing to do in that you didn't grab immediately hold of the horse's mouth. You just send it on and get it quiet. And that's what you always do. So you can't expect a horse And which is what leads to so much frustration because so many dressage riders are only concerned about whether the head and neck is down. That's the only thing that they seem to understand. And then they get all hung up on the transition. So don't worry about your transitions being good until the horse can stay stable in the bridle, in the gaits themselves. That is, when you can walk the horse, stretch it down, bring it up into a working walk, and you can do the same thing in the trot, and you can do the same thing in the canter, then you can start worrying about whether the horse maintains that perfect position between the gaits. Whereas, as I said, if you get hung up on that, that's what leads to a lot of fighting over horses' head and neck positions with people. And that's just very normal. She pops up there a little bit. You're still not quite as deep as we'd like her to be right there. But you get her into a really good place in this tape, and I commend you all. It's just wonderful for me to have you folks send in these videos and see how well you're doing all your own and how beautiful the horses are looking. You know, we're doing a lot of looking for horses right now. My wife is considering buying a new one. And, you know, we just see so many of these young horses, and they're all bridle lame, and they look like they're just out of their minds that people are, you know, trying to put on these sales tapes. You know, it's like people have just forgotten what the foundation. God, I sure would love to see one young horse going stretched into a contact in an appropriate frame for the level that it's going, instead of trying to be crammed into some frame it can't do. So this is wonderful, and as I said, it just looks really nice. It's flowing forward. You're not fighting with the horse. And that inconsistency will just go away like anything else. It takes time. And I like how you're just letting your hands be wide, and that's perfectly fine. You know, once again, when people come by and criticize you for doing this, you know, you tell them this is schooling riding. This is not what we do in the show ring. It's what we do with horses to get them working correctly. There, now that's good. You had a moment there where she got all the way there, and that's not a bad idea just after getting that, because she did get there really nice. Give her a reward for a second. Really nice, and the walk is looking a little better here. Hollows on you a little bit there, but that's normal. So we still need to get that stretch in the walk, and you could just work to make her a little bit more active in your walk once you come back to it. I don't know if you're carrying a stick there. I can't quite see, or your legs. You don't want to ever be, you know, pounding on the side of a horse all the time. That's why we do carry a whip. It's just that we don't have to touch very much with the leg. You know, the horses will become as sensitive as we teach them to be. So if we kick, the way we see so many people doing, and usually at the same time they're holding onto the mouth at the same time while they're doing it, when they wonder why their horses either go crazy or go half dead to everything. And they just end up not moving at all. So this is really nice. And a good example, if you just let go of the mouth and start riding your horses forward, you know, how much happier they are. And they, you know, most of them actually will stretch all by themselves if you just stick with it a while. Some are a little more difficult than others. And once again, that was a good transition. You didn't make any big attempt to make the horse stay in any frame. You just sent her on forward, then you started softening her. There, that's looking better there. She has moments where it really starts to look good there. So look at the moments when you see the hock really come underneath the body. You know, and you can see how when she throws her head there, how what happens is the back end stops moving. So we just still need to get her deeper and more consistent, and you're going to really see a change in this horse over a top line. Oh, that hole that you see behind your saddle right now is going to go away. Once again, the withers are going to come up, and you'll experience a whole enlarging of the front end of the horse. Once again, for those of you who like a scientific explanation of this, I highly recommend Gerd Hirschman's books on the subject. That's looking much better there. You know, there's nothing new about any of this work. You know, when people compliment, I have to say, I didn't invent any of this. I just went and learned it. You know, and the information has always been out there. There, now that's looking better there. And it gets a little inconsistent, no big deal. Once again, you're doing the right thing. You just put your leg back on and send the horse forward. That's always your response. Instead of grabbing more rein, you just send the horse more forward. Even if you never took contact with the reins, the way, you know, the old people used to ride hunters in the hunt field, you know, they would teach people just to let go of those reins. You know, you don't want to be fighting a horse, you know, because you would see what would happen in the hunt field all the time is the ones that were held back end up going crazy and flipping over on somebody because you can't hold all that energy back. So again, a little more swinging here would be good, but there you go. Now that starts to look better there. She gets a little bit deeper. But we're still looking for a lot more thrust out of the back end, which you're going to develop over time once again. Right now, you know, this horse goes, when you started out, she had a very short trot, and it's getting bigger and deeper all the time, and we're seeing more action in the hock. So that's what we want to do. So before we ever bring a horse's head and neck up, we have to find the maximum stride, or our optimal stride, so to speak, where the horse is totally comfortable and balanced. And once again, you'll hear me use the word balance a lot rather than the term half halt, which I never use, which is basically a misconception. The German and the French words for what we call a half halt were very different. In the French, it simply means to balance the horse. But the term half halt has given people the impression that we want them to stop, and it's not that. We want them to go deeper into the body, not stop. So once again, as I said, the first canter that you did was pretty good with this horse. I mean, it got to a good place pretty quick, and that's about how long it should take. And if you find that she starts to struggle, which she does, I mean, you've got to remember that the canter is never improved by cantering more. It's improved by trotting more. Now, there are some horses, some thoroughbred horses I run into every now and then, who can canter better than they can trot. And in those cases, as long as the horse can work over the back, that's the thing. I've seen a few horses in my life that could canter over the backs and couldn't trot over the backs. So one has to just be sensitive to that and be aware. And as you analyze your horse, as a trainer, that's what we must do, is analyze what the horse's strengths and weaknesses are, and play into those and try to help the horse in a way that its weaknesses, don't overcome it, so to speak, or make it so uncomfortable that it can't do the work. Now, this is not a bad canter here. That's a little better there. She starts to stretch into it a little better. I probably would have stopped about right there because I think that's about as good as it gets in this direction. What a beautiful big field you folks have to ride in there, and that's a lovely spot. That footing just looks really nice. That's not too bad over there. There's not much thrust through the horse's back in the canter, and that's when she starts to lose her footing a little bit there. But not bad. But you can see her starting to get tired now, so I would have made that a lot shorter. And once again, even with this horse, I would only canter this horse every few days rather than every day, and just see how your canter will blossom in itself, if you're not trying to do it every day and you let the horse build up more strength through the trot work. Comes back to pretty good trot there. That's it. So remember, we're always, as we go up in the levels, we always start and end in the same place. People have this idea that a Grand Prix horse, it's like a car. You get on it and we're going to come out and, start it up and go. And nothing could be further from the truth. Every correctly trained Grand Prix horse starts in the stretch and then comes up. You get it working over the top line, and then you bring it into collection. Collection is not a permanent state of being for a horse. It's something that the horse develops into being able to do. But like any highest level thing that an athlete ever does, you can't sustain it all the time. And that's where people start to make the mistake, is they override them and then their backs go. And unfortunately, our dressage federations have allowed this sort of hollow type dressage to come in so that people are confused. I mean, there should be a big difference between the scores of hollow horses and horses that are truly working over the backs, because that, if they're not working over their backs, they're really not doing dressage. And you can see here in this canter that she gets a little pissy. She starts taking her heel, and this is very hollow. So you were exactly right in your own assessment that this was kind of the bridge too far, so to speak. I would have quit where you were and come back to a good stretch and leave it at that. Why? This is, she has some pretty good parts here, but it really starts to kind of fall apart around a little bit. And that's part of the sensitivity of a good trainer is, just like yourself. And, if you're working to keep your body in shape, the horse works the same way. You get out of bed sometimes, and if you have a hard workout the day before and you feel stiff the next day, and you can't work up to the same level. So we have to get out of this idea of thinking that horses can be worked up to the same level every day. Nothing could be further from the truth. You kind of cycle them, up in, that's what I do through my week. So I try to peak a horse at the end of each week, just like I would try to peak a horse's conditioning at a show. Just like if you don't jump every day at home, I hope you don't. If you're jumping big fences, you just do some little tune-up stuff and you keep doing the flat work to get the horse so you can jump. Well, dressage is the same way. Think of upper levels of dressage as being a big fences, so you have to prepare the horse for that work. You have to warm it up for that work. You have to warm it down after that kind of work. And you have to sometimes give it days off from that level of work and just come back to the stretching and just let the horse get its body soft and supple again before we go back asking for extreme things. And once again, none of this is too bad, but she's starting to look like she's kind of, the footfalls are getting kind of quick, and she's not really giving us a big stride anymore, and you can see she's getting a little more uncomfortable in her back there. That's when she starts swishing, and that's why she throws her head. She gets uncomfortable with you. So once again, I would have just quit a little earlier, but you're right about that. But she comes back to a pretty good stretch here, and that's okay. Sometimes, you know, you learn from the situation. Next time you won't do so bad. But remember, the stretch erases your mistakes. So once again, I still want to see her stretch in the trot a little deeper, but you're getting it there, like right there. That's pretty darn good. This is Will Faerber from Art to Ride. See you soon.